Thank you. Can you make me host again now? Or co-host?
You're now live.
Okay, we are live, Mayor Beamish, and attendees are in the room.
Thank you very much, and thank you, Council. We have a quorum, and I'll call this regular meeting of Council for May 3rd, 2022 to order. We are meeting electronically, and we're honored to gather in the unceded territory of the Squamish Nation. Before I begin the meeting, though, I'd like to comment on one matter. This week is Mental Health Week, and one of our staff members, our manager of operations, sent out a email to our staff. I'm just going to read a portion of it to you and to those who are watching, because it's important. And statement went like this: we don't get it perfect, but as we continue to talk about it, get feedback about what helps or hurts, and learn together, I'm hoping it gets better and better. Day to day, each of you play a critical role in our town's core services that are the foundation of our unique community and the safety of the members of the public that we see every day. I've seen how seriously you take your responsibilities. They're big responsibilities. Things like safe water, sanitation, safe working condition, millions of dollars of equipment, community gathering spaces, children's safety, or people's homes. Above and beyond, I see examples of care towards cost saving, risk management, team building, or even caring for pollinators. Meanwhile, you're dealing with phone calls, team dynamics, emails, kind of boring paperwork, people stopping on the street to complain, coordinating, learning, and more. It's a lot. Your well-being and health matters, and what you do for your crews and this community matters. My role, professionally and for my community, is to support each of you in the ways that I can, as well as to support your supervisors as they support you day to day. This was sent out by one of our managers, our manager of operations, Graceland, to all of the staff today, and we copied it to council. I just want to say how important it is that we remember these issues and we comment on them and we don't hide them. Mental health is a serious issue. And we see it more and more in different areas, whether it's in sports, or police work, entertainment, various areas. We see mental health challenges, and we need to recognize them. We need to make it an inviting place for people to come forward with their issues. And I'm hoping that by this being done and by our calling that out, that people will feel comfortable coming forward. So I thank Graceland and I thank the staff for taking that initiative with us this week. That's why some of us are wearing green tags. Those of us who came in the office find these in our boxes wearing green tags this week. So, and welcome Colton Rockford, a youth counselor. So we'll start the meeting, and we'll ask for approval of the agenda from council. Councillor Kroll, Councillor D'Andrade, all in favor? Thank you very much. I'd also like to ask for a receipt of all the minutes and reports, correspondence, bylaws, and other items are on the agenda tonight. Councillor Kroll, Councillor Lumley, thank you. All in favor? Thank you very much. Adoption of the minutes. We have. Did we adopt the agenda? Yeah, we did. Yeah. So adoption of the minutes. The recommendation of the special council minutes of April the 12th. For adoption. Councillor D'Andrade, Councillor Kroll, all in favor? Thank you. The special minutes of the special council meeting April 19th for adoption. Councillor Kroll, Councillor D'Andrade, all in favor? Thank you. And the minutes of the regular council meeting April 19th for adoption. Councillor D'Andrade, Councillor Kroll, all in favor? Thank you. Business arising from the minutes. We have one item already listed, and these are from the minutes of the April 19th, 2022 meeting. This is music and the landing. And you recall at that time there was a resolution about special events. And we asked the proponent, Kevin Crofton, to go back to the drawing board and come up with other ideas for us. And is Kevin in the audience, and perhaps he could be promoted? I believe he is there tonight. I haven't looked, but I understand he was going to be there. Yes, he is there. Yeah, if you could please bring him forward. There he is. Kevin, hi. Yeah.
Me? All right.
Kevin, you provided council with two additional proposals, Proposal 1 and Proposal 2, that I
Yes.
believe all of council has received in their updates. And perhaps, Kevin, you'd like to walk us through those. Let's deal first with Proposal 1 and just
Sure.
briefly. Yeah.
Okay, I'm just bringing it up on my end as well.
Yeah.
So I think, just in looking at the opportunity for there to be different special events throughout the summer, in addition to Music in the Landing, and the fact that there was some monies allocated, that's where, and we talked a little bit about this the last time, but I just wanted to, just highlight each one of these proposed events. This Proposal 1 has Canada Day, which has performances of Canadian music in the park. So that would be the Joni Mitchell tribute show. That's all of this has been tentatively booked based on, approval. So she would be able to do her Joni Mitchell tribute. So it's really a really good show dedicated to Joni Mitchell. I do have a Ukrainian speaker who is lined up, and Ukrainian performers as well, who are, coming from the obvious strife in Ukraine to move into our community. So that would be part of it. And I think that's part of just, the celebrating who we are as Canadians, being able to include people in great need. And then the other one is the Canada 150 music tribute show, which is basically a musical journey of Canada from the Maritimes to the North, to the Prairie, to the West Coast. So, and that's costed out. The one that I'm certainly encouraging is the July 16th, which would be a return of the Indigenous Squamish Ocean Canoe family. It kind of like part of their fundraising that they do as well for their canoe journey that they do as a community. So as was the case last summer, they would be performing their songs and regalia, and then as well as their dance, and then teaching the audience the dance moves. It was very well attended last summer. It just felt like a really good coming together of our communities. So there's that. The other one is the Sunday, July 31st, BC Day long weekend, which would include performances by some of the kids and teens who are fiddlers, as well as their teachers, as well as some students from the dance academies. And tentatively, we would have Graham Walker and his band and other singers also having face painting, arts and crafts, dream catchers taught by Indigenous artists, and in the early evening, some youth band, teen bands and performers for that evening. That's that one. And then the last one being Labor Day weekend, which would essentially be kind of an extension of what's been going on throughout the summer with evening performances. I was able to cut down the cost a little bit on that in looking at how many would be in the bands that would be performing if this happens. And then as well, the live music on Saturday, Sunday, and Monday afternoon. So, all of that is costed out. So Proposal 1 was essentially just those 4 events, and then Proposal 2, if you were looking at a lower cost way of going, is just having the Indigenous Squamish Ocean Canoe family and the Labor Day weekend. So that's essentially, and I think in the email that I sent to Bill was looking at the total attendance of people with very, very short notice last summer. So we had about 3,000 attending the 9 Saturdays at Wine Garden Park. And just looking at the fact that we could look at promoting this provincially and on the ferries, and just have that as a destination for a number of travelers and tourists. in addition to a lot of our local people. I think part of my enthusiasm and excitement with this too is just seeing what an incredible amount of talent we have in our local community here. A lot of very accomplished professional musicians who really, really enjoy performing here. I mean, I'm available for any questions as well, but I just thought that could be a bit of a snapshot of what we're proposing.
Thank you, Kevin. And just remind council, the Music in the Landing itself, which is Friday nights on the gazebo, and then Saturday in Weingarten Park, and Saturday afternoon and Saturday evening, was approved. So those are going ahead. So every weekend beginning in July, we will have an event. These events take place on like Canada Day or Labor Day long weekend and BC Day. Those are Sunday events, and expanding into Sunday events as well. So there are additional opportunities in the community. So, well, Council, what direction would you want to go? Or, yeah, Councilor DeAndrade?
Thank you, Mayor. I already voiced myself last time. I'm in support of the full programming. I know we need to save money, but at the same time, you know, artists have been hit really badly, business, and I think this could really bring, you know, more tourists and more movement. If, like Kevin said, if it's advertised well in advance, I think would be amazing. I think the argument that if it rains, well, see Cavalcade, we never had control over the rain. I mean, so I don't know, we live in a rainy area. Just tell people to bring umbrellas and sing in the rain. Thank you.
We would look at setting up more canopies, and there could be a possibility of moving a bit closer to the, you know, to the band shell as a possible backup system if needed.
Councilor Ledwick?
Yeah, I think I'm in support of it too. I struggle a little bit with transparency and equal opportunity for different artists, and wondering how the selection process takes place and whether or not we should be putting a call out to art, like just how that's happened, right? Because there's lots of really, like you said, you know, there's lots of really good talented people. I'd like to know how we're dealing with that.
Some of them, there's been a lot of that kind of process going on, even for the last, since early February, of, you know, great interest in, you know, a return of Music in the Landing. Some of whom are people that have performed before. Some of the really accomplished musicians, Anna Lemire and Graham Ward, and some of the great jazz folks, as well as some of the popular bands we've had last summer as well. We were looking at also an evening where that was going to be dedicated to David King, award-winning playwright, very renowned guy who actually died from cancer a number of months ago. And so there were going to be some scenes from some of his comedy shows, just short ones, along with his music. There was an event that happened at Heritage Playhouse, which was sold out way in advance. And so there would be a lot of enthusiasm in bringing a semblance of that show back in July. So, but, you know, definitely a thing of wanting to have some diversity. I think that's, you know, definitely part of what the Squamish Nation would be bringing as well. And if we were to go with Canada Day, to have some Ukrainian performers in celebrating being in Canada.
I support diversity. That's great, but I also, you know, I think it's really great live music at some of the breweries and stuff around town, you know, that's targeting a different demographic. That's big, you know, it's a young demographic. Like Daniel Wesley is like a super well-known musician here on the coast, and you know, they do all sorts of live music every week at these pubs and stuff. And I just feel like I'm wondering if we're targeting some of that demographic.
I appreciate your recommending of him as well. And, you know, we definitely look at being able to fit him in the Labor Day long weekend as well, just given the kind of commitments that have happened at this point. But yeah, he's a great performer.
Yeah, and he's just one example. Like I guess what
Yeah.
I'm looking for is a process in which we can put a call out to musicians as opposed to just the ones
Well,
we know.
The call out happened on the Music on the Landing Facebook page and so there was a lot of response in early February as well of interest. So the wheels started moving at that point, just based on who was interested, and also we're submitting some videos as well of music that they've done in the past.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Other thoughts, Councillor Crowell?
Just for clarification, so we'd already approved the previous funding for Music in the Landing, so
That's
we're
correct.
looking at an additional 13,300 to make it the 27,300 that we're looking at now, down from 34,000. Or
Yes. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, I believe it was 18,000 with Music and Landing budget, and then whatever this is, so about 31.
Yeah, if it's proposal 1, then that would be that 13,300, and if it's proposal 2, then 5,900.
Yeah.
You know.
Councillor Diandrat?
Thank you, Mayor. I know there has been concerns like, okay, if we do this year and maybe we won't have the funds for next year. I would like just to understand from staff, perhaps if there are grants for this kind of, tourism incentive music to support local business and local communities.
I don't believe Music and Landing has ever had a grant. Usually they're not out there for that purpose. There could be some. The concept originally with Music and Landing was that we were going to prove the concept over a 3-year period, and we had a donation from a single party for $5,000 for 3 years. And the idea was that at the end of that 3-year period, we would approach the businesses and say, look, do you want to continue this? It's been successful. Do you support it? And they said, yes, we'd like to continue it, but we pay corporate taxes, business taxes, and we pay other things to the community, and we feel that we shouldn't have to pay for entertainment. So that's what happened in that sense. So it never got any sponsorship. So over the years, the price has just increased relative to everything else. And the number of the times, events and stuff like that, the cost of the sound systems and the professional support for it has also increased. So it's just become a matter that's where the budget is, but it's never been a grant funded program. And Manny?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, just in response to Councillor Diandrat's question, grant-wise for this type of programming, it's primarily for Canada Day, and we over the years apply for that, and it's in there few $100, $500. It sort of pays for the cake and a few other things. So it's not a huge amount of money. And it was a little bit larger doing the Canada 150 and these types of events, but otherwise it's a pretty small pickings, I should say.
And the funding for this is basically the Music and the Landing budget, which is the annual budget, and the money that was set aside previously for Sea Cavalcade. And that's where this funding is. It's been in the budget for years at these amounts. It's just been in the past. It's been fireworks and music.
If I could just mention one quick thing, obviously the event that will take a lot more organizing and volunteers involved is the Children's sort of Family Day by the Sea, as I've called it, because of the whole sort of variety of kids and teens that would be participating in that, as well as just all the volunteers and participants.
So does anybody want to make a motion at this stage in time? Councillor Diandrat? Your motion?
Sorry, Mayor, to appeal funding for the remaining activities, for events at Wine Garden Park.
Okay.
With a figure of 13,300, right? Yeah.
13,300. Yeah. You have a seconder for that? Okay, seeing no seconder for that, what would you like to do with the the second version then. And,
Mayor, are you, sorry, are you waiting for the motion?
I'm waiting for a motion. Yeah, that's
Okay,
right.
I'll move, I'll make
You'll
the
move
motion.
proposal 2.
Yes, to approve proposal 2.
We have a seconder for that. Councillor Crowell, okay. So that would be the Squamish Canoe family and Labor Day weekend. Yeah. Okay, any further discussion on those? Councillor Ladwick, go ahead.
So whatever we decide today, it's just for this year. And then next year, the
Be a different year. Yeah.
the whole process, same budget, different process.
Yeah, council could, as you go through the budget process, council can decide to eliminate budget. That's right now, this is the amount of money that's in the budget.
Mhm.
Is the 15,000 that was from the Sea Cavalcade plus the 18,000 for the music and landing. Those were the budget amounts this year. Council in next year's budget chooses to change that entirely up to council.
Mhm.
Yeah. Councilor Diandrat?
Thank you, Mayor. I would like to, if Kevin could elaborate a little bit on how he measures attendance and how reliable his measurements are.
So I was measuring attendance last summer by doing basically a head count just to get a sense as to who was there. I was present at all concerts and was involved with passing the hat and things like that. So we had the afternoon concerts as well as the evening. A lot of the evening ones were generally about 250. And for Music in the Landing, that's a pretty healthy number, I must say. Some of them were over 300. There was some great tips involved with that as well. And then we had smaller audiences in the afternoon, which happened several hours before that at the same venue, right? And those were, I would say, kind of more on the lines of 50 to 100, which I would like to have as a higher number for this summer because we do have some more lead-in time for publicity and things like that. But I think if everybody can remember last summer, this happened pretty quickly from a semblance where it wasn't going to happen at all. So I think given that, I was really happy with the numbers we had. So hopefully we have more.
I know the events that I attended last summer were very well attended. They were all evening events that I attended, but they were very well attended, and participation, especially the Squamish Canoe, was very active. So I mean, I'm assuming council goes to these on occasion and gets to see them because they are very active events and very well supported by the community and by visitors to the community. It's not just residents that attend these. It's a lot of the Airbnbs actually advertise these for us as part of the weekend events that you can take in when you come to Gibsons. So, Councillor Crowell?
Just a question, the piano that's in Weingarten Park, who's responsible for that?
That's been a big question from many of the performers.
The only reason I bring it up, it's been very seriously vandalized. And to the point, it's absolutely annoying.
If I could say something about that, there was a time when actually it sounded pretty good.
It did. It was great.
Had tuned it up, and being there, preparing for the afternoon shows, the amount of people, tourists as well as some locals who would use that. I mean, you could, I suppose, get some other kind of piano in there because it is covered, but at the same time, it's obviously not a great environment. But it's certainly a lovely thing to have there. We would make sure that for the Sunday busking during Music in the Landing, that it's not available at that time. But it sure would be nice if there was some improvement on it.
Well, we frequently see pianos, particularly uprights, being offered, free to a good home.
Yeah.
But, that thing has been vandalized beyond repair.
Yeah.
It's a
And
bit of a sidebar, Councillor Crowe, right now. Let's take a vote on the motion. All in favor then of the special event proposal 2? Yeah. Okay. Okay. No, thank you. Well, Kevin, that's it. You've got your marching orders. I appreciate that. Thank you for all your work on this, Kevin. It's never easy, and but I appreciate your taking this on because it's been running now since about 2005, and we'd hate to see it lost.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Well, thanks for all of your support as well. And, one thing I'd pass on from the Squamish Nation folks as well, they really appreciate when the mayor and if any council members can be in attendance for that, especially when we give them the money, from the town.
Yeah.
It's a real nice exchange of leadership. Yeah.
Great.
All right.
Thank you. I'll be there again. Thank you very much. Take care. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Okay, moving on to proclamations, annual Fallen Dafa Day, and Councillor D'Andrade, you're speaking to this.
Well, thank you, Mayor. Well, it's interesting because this week, and you already brought that forward, it's Canadian Mental Health Week. So it's really timely that Council is proclaiming May 13, 2022 as Falun Dafa Day in the town of Gibsons. Falun Dafa is a practice that improves our mental state since it works in synchronicity with body and mind. The practice combines gentle exercise and meditation, which are very easy for anyone to follow. Falun Dafa, also known as Falun Gong, doesn't require a lot of space and therefore can be practiced almost anywhere, preferably quiet, obviously, but for a good practitioner, even a noisy place, it would be viable. So when the mind is in peace, the world becomes peaceful with you. And I salute Falun Dafa practitioners in Gibsons and all over the world, especially in times of war. And thank you, Mayor, for this proclamation. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll read the proclamation. Whereas Falun Dafa is an advanced ancient exercise and meditation practice of mind, body, and spirit based on the universal principles of truthfulness, compassion, and forbearance. And whereas Falun Dafa practitioners follow the principles and incorporate them into their daily lives, striving to become better people in all environments and situations. Whereas Falun Dafa has benefited both physically and spiritually tens of millions of people in over 100 countries around the world since its introduction in China on May 13th, 1992. And whereas Falun Dafa transcends cultural and racial boundaries and contributes to a more peaceful, tolerant, and compassionate society, now therefore I, William Beamish, Mayor of Gibsons, do hereby proclaim May 13, 2022 to be known as Falun Dafa Day in the town of Gibsons. Proclamation 219, no, this should be 2022-08, May 3rd, 2022. Thank you very much, and we'll have that copy, signed copy. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, first item number 6 on our agenda is inquiries, and at this point in time, I invite anybody to come forward with an inquiry that in respect of any matter that we have on our agenda tonight.
If anyone has a question, please raise your hand. I see no hands raised, Mayor Beamish.
Okay, thank you. We'll move on. Committee reports. First committee report, meeting of the whole. For the April the 19th, we've received a report already. The recommendation here is that the 22 grants of assistance be approved, and they are all listed there for you to see. And the total amount for the round 1 approvals was $15,000, $15,500. I actually thought we'd approved this already, but we will approve it again. So motion, Councillor Kroll, Councillor D'Andrade, all in favor? Thank you very much. That's done. Administration reports, and this is from Kristen Defoe, planner for the development variance permit application for 356 Skyline Drive to increase building height by 1.9 meters and reduce exterior side setback by 3.0 meters for a new single family home. I'll go to the Director of Planning.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll just share my screen. I have a quick presentation to remind Council of this application. Okay. There we go. So this is 356 Skyline. The variance is to the maximum building height and minimum exterior side lot line setback for a new single family dwelling. So this is the subject property. It's on both Skyline and Avalon Drive, and the property slopes down. In this map, there are 2 addresses, but since the committee meeting in April 19th, the applicants have arranged to remove one of the addresses because it's just going to be a single family dwelling. So the footprint of the proposed home is within the lot line setbacks and is shown here in this image. The applicants are proposing a new 3-story dwelling, which is accessed by a bridged driveway from Skyline Drive. The design helps to reduce the need for disruptive excavation and to meet the applicant's needs for a usable, more level yard, as well as to provide accessibility conscious entry on Skyline with an elevator between all 3 floors. So this shows 2 views. One is the view from Avalon Drive, which appears, well, it's a 3-story dwelling from Avalon Drive. And then looking at it from Skyline Drive, it appears to be a single family, like a little small single family or single story building. Homes across the street on Skyline are at a much higher elevation and have clear views over the roof, despite the requested height variance. So the variance request, there's 2 requests here. One is to vary the minimum setback at Skyline Drive from 3 meters to 0 meters, and that is for the bridge or driveway access. And then the second variance is to increase the height from 8 meters to 9.9 meters to accommodate an upper portion of the 3rd floor. So this picture here shows the bridged driveway access. So it is being constructed right up to the property line. That's for the that's the request for the 0 meter setback. And then this shows the average grade is shown in green. The maximum height would be here at 8 meters. And what they're asking for is this additional height variance. So prior to the April 19th committee meeting, the applicants reached out to the neighbors and solicited input, and they received 4 letters of support from neighboring properties. On April 20th, the town delivered 19 letters to owners and occupiers within 50 meters, and no responses were received. So the staff recommendations are for the mayor to provide an opportunity for those affected by the application to be heard, and staff are recommending approval of both the setback variance and the height variance. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Director. We'll go first then to ask if anybody in the audience tonight who feels they are affected by the proposed variance, please identify yourself and you'll have an opportunity to make a presentation.
I see no hands raised, Mayor Beamish.
Okay, I'll ask a second time if there's anybody who has an issue or concern about this application, please identify yourself.
Again, no hands are raised.
And for a third time, is there anybody in the audience who wishes to speak to this application?
And for a third time, no one has raised their hand.
Seeing none, council, you have considered this before. Do somebody care to move the 2 recommendations that exist? Councillor Crowell, thank you. Councillor Lumley. Any further discussion, council? Seeing none, all in favor? Thank you very much. And thank you, Director of Planning, for your work on this. We'll now go to council reports and an opportunity for councillors and youth council to to provide any updates or reports on activities that are going on in their lives or that they have been involved in. Councilor Diandrad, I'll go first.
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, I had the opportunity to attend the CLUC Ecosystem Conference from April 26 to 28. As always, a great conference, lots of subjects. I mean, one of the topics was about cumulative effects. It is sad to see, in a way, since I have been attending this conference since 2008, that our CLUC is degrading due to cumulative effect. So, I mean, one of the issues is the border, even though there has been a lot of projects, and but I think one of the issues is research stops at the border, both from Canadians, despite some collaboration in place. Another presentation another topic, another panel actually, that I thought was fantastic was the rights of the CLUC. It's a major paradigm shift and an innovative legal framework. And Indigenous people always thought like that. And actually, not too long ago, Ecuador and Peru, I think it was Peru or Bolivia, declared nature like Pachamama, they put in the constitution, so the right of nature to exist. So I actually brought this concept during my attempt to launch the cat bylaw with, the rights of wild birds to live and thrive, right? In face of the domestic animals and also invasive species and so on. So this is something that's getting traction, hopefully sooner than later. And, so the rights of salmon to exist, the rights of the CLUC to exist. And so humankind can, be more gentle with all the impacts on it. I think we are somehow very arrogant species that we just go there and, and do whatever we want to do and we don't consider them. Another panel that was really interesting about attended was the natural asset management, which actually our technician Michelle Lewis presented. It was a very good presentation. So this is what I was doing. And also I had a meeting with Manny and Michelle Lewis just to brainstorm a little bit about the year of the CLUC. And so we're gonna have I have meetings with other people. So, just to suggest some programming. The town is not gonna be active in delivering, but it's just in terms of the message going forward and inviting all the organizations to, for a full year to think about the CLUC in everything we do. And the town does a lot, but we can always do more. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor. Colton, I saw your hand.
Yeah. So one of the things I've been doing actually on Councillor Diandrad's subject, the year of the CLUC, about a week ago, I think, week or two ago, we were actually talking about the CLUC and how that's all coming up. And we are trying to make a program in the high school. Currently, our plan is that we're going to try to get a presentation in the high school on the year of the CLUC. Hopefully, we can get the whole school all together in assembly and there could be a guest presentation. I'm going to try to get that going with the high school admin and see where that goes. And I have big hopes for it, that we can get lots of awareness with that. And then also with the Holland Lands during the open house about 2 weeks ago, I think. I got posters from Councillor Kroll and Elizabeth Quayle, and I put those posters up around the high school, and I got announcements on the high school, or I got announcements in the high school's morning announcements to try to get people involved in the input of that as well. So hopefully we'll have stuff coming in from there. And lastly, in the high school where I've been working on the high school's courtyard garden club, we have gotten approval on basically everything we want to do. It's okay for us to move around pipes and stuff, and it's awesome. So
Great.
We're making a lot of progress there. So I'm really excited to make the Sten Garden happen in there.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you for your leadership on those as well. It's excellent. Councillor Kroll?
Thank you, Mayor Beamish. It's been an interesting time. On the 25th, we had yet another meeting with the emergency housing group. And one of the things that came up during discussion, excuse me, is the whole RV situation and the problems in the regional district and other areas with them. So to that end, I had a brief discussion with staff and asked if there were areas that we might look at. Obviously, it's going to have to be in collaboration with the regional district and perhaps property owners. If there are perhaps areas where a temporary RV park could be established in such a manner that it would be possible for it to tie into municipal services as opposed to have to go the route of septic fields and permits and potentially setting up septic fields on our aquifer recharge area. So staff were sort of supportive to work with us in that direction. On Tuesday, the 26th, I worked with Patricia Watt, Tammy Hartman, and Joy Hill, and we produced 60 liters of chili for a fundraiser at the market. And these people who help in the market kitchen, they also helped us last year with the community supper at the Legion. So what goes around comes around. On Wednesday, we had the advisory design panel. Staff very creatively have come up with a points, I believe it's 8H of criteria that we look at when we're addressing a project. So this project was a particularly simple one, but at least it gave us an opportunity to check out the scaling process, and hopefully it'll make it a little easier for discussion when these items come to Committee of the Whole and Council. On the 28th was the day of mourning. It wasn't as large an event as it has been in the past. A number of staff people, town staff came out, along with representatives from other unions and labor groups on the coast. And curiously enough, one of the things we talked about was the workplace being a level playing field and a mental health first aid kit. So it fits very well with the information that Graceland has brought forward. I also shared with Sophie and Graceland, there's a course being offered on the coast, and it's called Mental Health First Aid. So we talked about, keeping an eye on your fellow worker, because you don't always know what they're going through. And if they're being distracted with other things or under pressure, that's usually when accidents happen. Thursday was regional district. I covered the board meeting. I'm just trying to think if there was anything exciting came out of that. It was budget approval mainly. Friday was the House Sound Forum, and Michelle Lewis also attended it virtually. And it was a good gathering, a good representation of the local MP was there, the MLA was there, the MP was there. And something I would like to bring up, because I did mention in my report to the forum, the fact we have students on council. And I'm very remiss that I didn't think of it sooner, that where possible, we should invite our students on council to attend some of these meetings, because it gives them an overview of the greater community, but also their participation, I think, is quite valuable. And so I think moving forward, where there are opportunities for the students on council to attend, I would certainly move that we make that possible. There were reports from Lions Bay, Squamish. Squamish has a project of net zero homes. They've also managed to have 400 purpose-built rental units they're starting construction on. And they were able to do this. I was sort of green with envy when Mayor Elliott brought this forward. but in conversation with her after, she said it's only taken them 8 years to get that to happen. But the way they did make it happen was by pre-zoning areas to make it happen. So taking areas where development like that would be suitable and putting the zoning in place. So when the project came forward, it didn't have to go to public hearing. It basically could move ahead because the zoning was in place. On the 30th, I was invited to an event at the Heritage Playhouse, which was presented by the Sunshine Coast Hospice Society. And due to circumstances, I will say beyond my control, I missed the documentary. Our corporate, our CAO did attend it. It was a documentary called Living with Dying. And it was actually people who are dying who were interviewed for this documentary. It was done over a 2-year period. I got there as it was ending, but judging by the body language in the room, it was a very, very powerful documentary. And I would invite the CAO who was there, if he has any comments, please bring them forward, because it is going to be available on the Sunshine Coast Hospice website, and it's also being offered out to other hospice societies just for dealing with a very sensitive matter that ultimately we've all got to deal with. And if Manny has anything he would like to add with respect to that documentary, I would welcome it.
If I may, Mr. Mayor.
Seal.
The documentary, it really shows the value of hospice services and how real it becomes for us, and you don't have to go very far. It's what every family is dealing with, and it's almost this invisible struggle. And this documentary is incredibly personal, and it's hard not to be connected to it when you watch it. And these are all people we all know. So I was very pleased to have been taken part of that. And it's a resource that will become available very soon in the next few weeks on the hospice website. And it's meant to be a community resource so that we can rely on that as we go through that for others to relate to it, whether you're going through it yourself or somebody in your family.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, I'll go next. A few things to bring up. One is, and I don't know if council got a copy of it, the Transforming Policing and Community Safety in British Columbia. This is a report of the policing committee that was established over a year ago. A very interesting report. They came out with a total of 11 recommendations. The major one that's causing a lot of interest, of course, is the report that the BC transitioned to a BC police force that would be as opposed to a mixed policing bag that we have now with RCMP and 11 municipal police forces, looking to transition to a BC force. Another recommendation is to ensure all Indigenous communities have direct input in the police service. One important one that we highlighted in our presentation was to create and appropriately fund a continuum response to mental health, addictions, and other complex social issues with a focus on prevention and community-led responses. The issue around exploring options to phase in or incrementally increase the municipal share of policing costs, as opposed to that kind of bang at 5,000 population, you suddenly become responsible for your costs, looking to at a phase-in model. And looking also at making changes to doing actually a thorough review of the Mental Health Act to look at modernizing that act and making it align with the Police Act and the role of policing. So there's a number of issues there. If you get a chance to read it, I should recommend we do that. I think that it'll be something that'll be dealt with by the legislature, and possibly a more consultation will go forward with it. But it's a very interesting read, and transforming policing and the community safety in British Columbia. So if you didn't get a link to that, let me know and I'll make sure you get one. I attended the Council of Forest Industries conference in Vancouver this week. This is the second time in this tenure I've attended that. I attended in 1999 and attended again this week. It's always a very interesting conference and very interesting speakers, both from First Nations and industry and government. I think the biggest takeaway this time for me were the two presentations that were held on the economy. Not a pretty picture. Both of the economists are well respected, one a advisor to the Bank of England and the other one to advisor and to governments in Canada. Both of them look at the time we're going into now as being very tenuous. One of the presentations was navigating chopping waters, focusing on world uncertainty, Ukraine-Russian conflict, the pandemic, global trade and supply chain, food, energy crisis, inflation, refugee crisis, the BC economy, forecasting slow growth, gain, global supply chain issues, pandemic, rising business costs, transportation, materials, labor costs compounded by labor shortages, an aging population on fixed incomes, increased healthcare costs, rising household debt. All of these things are going to impact us in the coming future. And that BC growth today is largely supported by mega projects like the Site C Dam and government subsidies. It's not supported by industry right now going forward. And the message was protect what we have and be very selective in terms of ensuring that the projects we undertake are needed and that we don't get too far off course on those things. Another presentation by another economist said very much the same thing. He said, we're not out of the woods yet, and the shared economic growth is critical. And that identifying again, labor shortage, COVID, supply chain issues, and Russia. All of that I thought was a little bit kind of concerning to me in the context of other news we were seeing at the same time. I don't like to single out industry, but I'm looking at Canfor. Canfor, May the 2nd, May the 3rd. Canfor reports results for first quarter of 2022. Operating income of 742 million, driven by strong lumber prices. The shareholder income of 534 million, or $4.29 a share. West Fraser Timber. Sales of $3.1 billion and earnings of $1.9 billion. I mean, we're suffering. We know what it costs for a piece of wood these days. But how is it that industry is making bigger and bigger profits at the same time? We also saw that our own community forest, Sunshine Coast Community Forest, making big profits. Yet, where are those profits translated into our economy, our cost of living? And that's what concerns me, is that we're recognizing the high price of housing, the high cost of housing, all attributable to the high cost of supplies and materials, and which is the bottom line for these big forest countries. And that's concerning, is that I think there's a disconnect there, and that's unfortunate. But so it's interesting to go to a conference that talks about those issues, but also talks about how much money they're making at the same time. So I thought that was a little bit interesting. I attended a CAPU Board of Governors meeting last week with Mayor Seegers and Donna McMahon, a public market board meeting as well last week. And on Sunday, I emceed a fundraiser for Ukraine, and very generous community. I think we had probably 150 people out there. Music was great. And we raised almost $6,000 for field hospitals in Ukraine. And so that was an excellent opportunity as well. So there's never an end, as we see, just listening to council, of things that we can do and getting involved in the community. And that's very positive. So Councillor Crowell, you had your hand up?
It was just a lot of, with your reference to the lumber companies, or lumber companies, for want of a better word, no longer are there boardrooms in Canada.
Yeah.
I think it's a huge factor. we've, they've been taken over by foreign interests, and their interests are not necessarily our interests.
Mm.
And I think that's, you look at that with lumber companies, you look at it with the mining companies, you look at it with the oil companies, their boardrooms are not in Canada. And yet we're the source of all the raw materials.
They're making lots of
it's,
money. Yeah.
It reminds me of my grade 11 geography teacher who said, we've been very good at, going for the lollipop today and avoiding, not being able to buy the Cadillac tomorrow because we've sold what we own.
Councillor Ladwig?
Yeah, last week I attended the Sunshine Coast Affordable Housing Society's first intergovernmental subcommittee. I just wanted to bring that up because I think it's a really effective way to get elected officials from across all the governments at one table for a very efficient conversation about how we can collaborate on issues that affect all of us, such as affordable housing.
Yeah.
So I just want to share that because I think there's some lessons to be learned there for any of our liaison appointments. Quick, efficient, that's how you get everybody at the table. I know that, the Sunshine Coast, the SCRD board folks are very busy. And so it's just a great way to get them to participate. I will also say it's been a long time coming, and so that's why I wanted to make a note of it. They just got their final inspection approved last week for Franklin Road, which is really great. I mean, there's been people living in there for a while, but as we all know, building takes time. All these little T's that need to be crossed and I's that need to be dotted, but they had it last week. So that's a big step for them. And that means a lot for sort of their being in the good books with BC Housing in order to get funding in the future and that sort of things for Shaw. So yeah, just wanted to let you guys know about that. And of course, yes, we did have our Holland Lands open house. When was that, last week? I can't remember. And so we're in the consultation phase for that, and we're already getting feedback on lessons learned from that process. So thanks.
Thank you. Councillor Deandrad?
Thank you, Mayor. I really commend you for bringing this issue and Councillor Crowe for elaborating on it. I have been very preoccupied with this stakeholder economy where, a small group of investors, they take all the wealth of everywhere, every country, and the people bear the cost and policy. And then there are lobbyists all over in every single level of government. And the people of the country are degrading. They don't have a place to live. And now food security and also policies are not really being made for the interest of the regular person. So I really commend you bringing that. And I really hope we can evolve this conversation, because I think it's time to have this conversation with our MLA and our MP. I think our economy it's very dysfunctional. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Okay, I see nothing else to report. We'll move on to correspondence and remind council that we passed over the correspondence of the last meeting. And so the correspondence we've received for today is April 5, 11, and 12, 22. But as I think correspondence from last meeting as well is open. So anybody wishing to bring any item forward, please do so. Councilor Deandrad?
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to say generally to our community that even though I'm not bringing in specifically because council is dealing with certain, Stonehurst and Glassford, but I just want the public to understand that we are paying attention. We are really taking, residents' concerns into account. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Councillor Kroll.
Thank you, Mayor Beamish. At an earlier occasion, I did reference the piano in the Lower Village, which, as a well-tuned, complete instrument, it can be quite lovely, but in its current condition, I think it's probably noise pollution. So I don't know who we need to deal with to perhaps get it replaced with something more appropriate, but certainly what's there isn't appropriate. And then this is more of a time-sensitive thing. The International Day Against Homophobia and Transphobia is May 17th. And they're looking for support in recognizing May 17th, 2022, as the International Day Against Homophobia and Transphobia, which is actually the day of our next council meeting.
Yeah.
So I would just draw attention to that. It is, it is becoming a bigger and bigger issue with just human and gender rights. So I just wanted to flag that and appreciate what Councillor Dendretti was saying. There was a number of reoccurring letters that we're getting from the community with respect to projects that are in the works. So, just so people at home know, we are looking at their letters, and, staff have been great collating all this correspondence and including it in the reports we receive as these items come to the table. So, appreciation to staff for dealing with, I think right now with between the several files we've got, there was like close to 1,000 pages of reading material.
And I just remind as well that ourselves that we are understaffed at the present time with people being sick and being absent and vacancies. So that's a challenge. Councillor Ludwig?
Yeah, I'd like to bring up a letter that was sent to us on March 29th regarding the lack of clarity on building permit costs. This individual in particular was referring to the infrastructure charges that he received, as well as the latecomer charges on his permit, charges that it wasn't made clear to him when they applied for their building permit. In our budget, and I'm thankful to council for this, we budgeted $5,000 to do a review of the development application processes that we currently have. And so that's something that I've been pushing for, and I'm really grateful that council supported that. The reason I wanted to bring this up is because I don't know if I want to make a motion or just, I'd like to talk about timelines and when that review process is going to happen, because if possible, I would like it to happen earlier than later. Because we continue to get complaints from folks not understanding the true cost of these applications. And I think it's important, the true cost or the true requirements or the true, there always seems like we're being hit by individuals that were surprised by something in the building permitting process. And so I would like us to do that formal review this quarter if possible.
I turn to the CAO to see if that's possible.
Mm-hmm.
Mr. Mayor, we'll try to do that. In the next couple of weeks, we'll be able to assign all the projects as we complete the budget process, and that will become a bit more clear.
The work planning.
The work planning. I think it's primarily a communications improvements part of it. And the fact that costs have changed a fair amount as well hasn't helped things. But in terms of, I understand that process. It's been a few years since we've last updated that, and there are charges like the sewer, the crossroad improvement charge, or to cover that, for example, that these are real costs, and our DCCs are real, and so on. So. The part that's most of these costs are associated in a bylaw. So the bylaw it's not, there's a matter of, there's two parts to it. There's the complaints are generally around, I wasn't told about that ahead of time, which is one area definitely to recognize. The other aspect is about the uncertainty, but it's like, we don't know until we're a little bit closer to it. And what that means is, when you have a property and you want to, split a lot, for example, or two, and the cost of servicing that lot, it's not something we can put on a bylaw because it's on a case-by-case basis, whether the line is across the street or not, and what we have to cross and so on. So there's those types of costs are, the last couple of ones have been more of that type around, why this cost at this time and so on. So we certainly appreciate that, and we'll do our best to do that as soon as we can, because it benefits us as well.
Mhm. Yes, thank you. And I just want to emphasize the two cases I know where I've heard complaints about this were both in cases where they were trying to put in a secondary suite, small suites to house one individual, nurses that are working in the hospital. And cost of building is high and people don't understand the cost. And this woman was she applied for a building permit. She was starting to get scared. The costs were going up. And all of a sudden she finds out she's going to have this $5,000 infrastructure upgrade cost because she's putting in a secondary unit, and she pulled her permit. She's like, this is just getting too much for me. And so these are the kind of things I think as a community, we need to really get clear and be helping people through this permitting process so they're more encouraged to do these types of things.
Fair enough.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, seeing nothing else from council, we'll go on to bylaws, and we have several bylaws now. This is actually finalizing our financial budget process right now. So we'll go through at the Director of Finance. Is there anything you want to discuss on these, Director of Finance?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. No, nothing to add at this point. This is just a final adoption, as you mentioned, of the 2022 budget process, and this provides the authority for us to move forward on those projects that are being referenced tonight, as well as our just general work plan. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. So the first one then is the recommendation. I'm looking at 11.1, the 2022-2026 financial plan bylaw, 1296, 2022 be adopted. Councillor Kroll, Councillor Ladwig, all in favor? Thank you. The second one, the annual tax rates bylaw, the annual tax rate bylaw number 1297, 2022 be adopted. Councillor Lumley, Councillor D'Andrade, thank you. All in favor? Thank you. Third one is the community recreations facilities parcel tax bylaw 1298, 2022. Recommendation be adopted. Councillor Kroll, Councillor Lumley, all in favor? Thank you. And the next one is the sewer tax parcel bylaw number 1299, 2022 be adopted. Councillor D'Andrade, Councillor Ladwig, all in favor? Thank you. And finally, the water tax bylaw number 1300, 2022, recommendation be adopted. Councillor D'Andrade, Councillor Lumley, all in favor? Thank you. Okay, those are all done, and congratulations. And Director of Finance, once you get those in the mail, you can sleep in the next day. There's nothing else to do. That's it. You're done. You're finished for the year. Oh, collect the taxes. Thank you. All right. No unfinished business, no new business, no notice of motions. We'll go to inquiries again then.
Mayor Beamish, I'll be moving over Denise Dombrowski.
Thank you. I saw you, Colton. We'll come back to you. Yep.
Good evening and thank you,
Denise,
Mayor
welcome.
Beamish.
Welcome.
Thank you. So I just have a question regarding the meeting agendas. I am on the email list, so I get the agenda sent out a week ahead of the meeting,
Yep.
which is great. Lately, though, I've noticed that there's been updates, a lot of updates to the agenda sent out after that initial agenda. And today there was one that came even as late as 6:30 before tonight's meeting. So, and I mean, I understand things change and I appreciate being notified of the changes. And I'm wondering if there's a way to find out exactly what the changes are, because when I look at the agendas, they all look the same to me, and I have to go through piecemeal to try and find out what exactly has changed and whether it is something that I want to quickly research before the meeting. So I'm just wondering if there's a way that can be facilitated.
It's a good point, and perhaps I'll ask a corporate officer to look into that. It might be a matter of just highlighting a change or putting a cover note to it, just to say that this has been added or this has been deleted. Corporate officer?
We try to do that if we can. Often a matter is being brought forward straight up from committee of the whole, which is why it's happening between committee of the whole, which usually ends around 5 p.m. and the start of the council meeting at 7, because some motion that, or recommendation that was made by the committee of the whole includes a recommendation that it come forward to the immediately following council meeting. That is one reason you will see it happen so close to the start of a meeting time. We try to put in the notice when we do a republication, why it's being republished. Sometimes there's a late item that's been added that came forward at the request of someone on council because it's time sensitive, or perhaps there's some other supporting material for an item that's already on the agenda that's being added to an item that's already listed. So we'll try and make sure we put notifications to let you know why it's coming forward, but thank you for asking.
Yeah. Sometimes
Thank you
there's
very
also,
much.
sometimes there's also deletions to the agenda, and I know that that probably occurred on this particular one. So,
Which would be helpful to know as well in a little note, instead of having to go through the entire agenda and figure out what's going on.
good thought.
Thanks
Hey,
so
listen,
much.
Listen, we get confused too.
I'm sure you
Yeah,
do.
About quarter to 7, somebody gives me a new agenda.
I know. I'm sure you're as confused as I am.
That's right.
Thanks
Thank
so
you.
much.
Thank you.
And Mayor Beamish, you will now have Mark Evans coming over.
Okay. Yeah. Haven't forgotten you, Colton. Yeah. Mark, go ahead.
Good evening, Your Worship and Council. Thank you very much for the opportunity to speak. My question is regarding item number 12, unfinished business. And it certainly occurs to me that Glassford Road closure, being a trial closure of 6 months, well into its 8th month now, is unfinished business. And I would expect to at least see it on the agenda, even if it is moved forward with nothing further to report. Is that something that's not carried further on in the unfinished business?
It's not. It's a very seldom you see things in the unfinished business unless there's a report to be made on a matter like that. Or a council member might bring up an issue under unfinished business, say, what about this? And that's where that can be done. But we don't carry that list forward because there's a number of things that we'll agree to or give direction on at a meeting that carry over, and they come back in different forms. But the unfinished business, it's just like business arising. A council member could actually bring up a question on unfinished business and say, well, where are we with this issue? And that could be done at that time. But we don't carry a list of unfinished business on the agenda.
I thank you. I thought that might be a good thing to adopt. It's just a link to a page that has all of the business on it. Speaking of which, is there an opportunity to update us on where we are?
CAO, and we're talking about Glassford Road.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, as you might recall, Mr. Brown last reported to you verbally at mid-April, I believe, and is back, I think, next week. And I know he's been in contact with us. He's away at the moment, but he's working on the report, and we expect him to report in the next couple of weeks here back. We have some engineering information as well from Urban Systems. So that's where we're at time-wise. That's within that time frame.
Do you anticipate that to be on this agenda for the 17th?
I don't. I think he arrives back in Canada on the 15 or 16 or so.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm not sure of that day exactly, Mr. Mayor, but it's as soon as he's back, and I don't have a specific date today.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
Well, that's quite a concern, because we on the road here face real danger and the restrictions that are imposed upon us in a 6-month trial that is well overdue. Why not just open up the road? I know you've all received my letters, and I have urged others who have thanked me for speaking on this issue to write council. And I'm not sure whether they are or not. It's not all of the correspondence ends up in the website. However, it's a simple thing. The road was safe beforehand. It is less safe now. Open the road. Let's try something different. It was a 6-month trial. All we need is somebody to say, let's make that motion. It was a 6-month trial. Trial's over. Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate your frustration. I share your frustration. I am prepared at this point to wait for the staff report to come forward. And I would anticipate that in a timely way, as quickly as we can get it.
Yes, this was the staff report that was due prior to the end of February, according to the original motion.
I appreciate that. Thank you. Okay, Colton, you're up.
Awesome. Okay, so I think it was two or three meetings ago that the town council established the Active Transportation Advisory Committee. And I was talking with some of the people in my school about that through the school interact program, asking if they would maybe want to get involved, because I think I'd asked a few meetings ago if there could be youth involved in that, and I got a yes. And I was wondering if, because I have people in my school who are interested in that, where the status is on the Active Transportation Advisory Committee.
I won't speak speak for Manny, but I know that Mark Brown was working on the terms of reference for that, and haven't seen him come forward yet, but he was developing the terms of reference. I want to check with Councillor Ladwig, because this was actually your initiative, Councillor. That came up at intergovernmental. Was that intended to be a interjurisdictional active transportation committee or a local active transportation committee?
Good question, Mayor. It's actually two separate things. So I had originally made a motion during our budget negotiations to have this active transportation committee, and that was for the town boundaries. So
Okay.
that's a Gibsons committee. Yeah. At the intergovernmental meeting that the Sunshine Coast hosts, I think once or twice a year with all the government of Sunshine Coast, we all got together, and I put forward a presentation where I was pitching the idea of the coast getting together on an active transportation route that goes up the coast.
Right.
And I saw that as possibly a subcommittee to ours or a separate, like I wasn't exactly sure what the governance would be, but I made that pitch, and I did get support from Donna McMahon to participate in that. But I haven't been, and I sent it to our corporate officer to bring that presentation to one of our council agendas, just to have a discussion about it. Right. I haven't seen it yet, but I'm hoping it'll come soon. So there's kind of two pieces at play right now, and I am just waiting for that terms of reference to come from kind of spell out.
I know that last correspondence I had from Mark was basically that was one of the things on his agenda to work on, is the active transportation in terms of reference. So Golden, as soon as that's available, and you'll see it discussed by council probably on a committee initially. Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Golden, go ahead.
So it just ordinarily takes a few weeks for a committee to be formed?
Definitely does. Yeah. The terms of reference have to be approved, and then reviewed and approved, and then we have to advertise for people who might be interested in participating on it. So it does take some time. Yeah.
Thank you.
Mayor Beamish, you're being joined by Donna Thomas now.
Thank you. Donna, welcome.
Thank you. It's exciting, doesn't it?
Always.
No, I mean, I can't believe sometimes how much it matters that we talk about these things live and don't just read them on agendas.
Yeah.
Anyway, I have a couple of questions. This approval that we just made, did we approve of the whole list of things that are going to be happening on our special events that we've just said okay to? I see there's a price tag of $14,000. Did we say yes to that?
No, we've said yes to $5,900.
Oh, okay, well, that's even better.
Yeah.
We've said yes to everything. That's what I'm so glad about.
Yeah, no, we didn't say yes to everything. We just said yes to July 16, the event proposal number 2. July
Yeah,
16 and
Yeah.
Labor Day weekend.
So there's a whole bunch of other stuff that we didn't approve?
That's correct, yes.
What a bummer. Okay.
Well,
My other question,
Donna, we still do have music in the landing. So even though those events like Canada Day, we won't have anything happening on Canada Day, we still have music in the landing going ahead this year. And Canada Day is my birthday. We can all celebrate my birthday. And I'll throw a party at my place.
okay. Where were we? Oh, yes. I would like to also mention that the active transportation file, if you want to call it that, the Parents Advisory Committee, the PACs, have been quite involved in that. I know in particular Langdale PAC, and there was all kinds of work done around the active transportation there. So Colton may find that getting in touch with maybe Miyuki Shinkai, he might find out all kinds of interesting things about that. And the other thing I wanted to say that the town, on behalf of the town, David Kroll presented a wreath at the memorial during the day of mourning. That beautiful wreath made with orchids and roses and a lot of lovely greenery and just really a gorgeous thing. And I believe David made it himself. And I wanted to say that it was a beautiful afternoon, and it was interesting how something pulled together that quickly. It felt so good, and so I wanted to thank David for being there as your representative, or whatever you would call him, acting mayor. And he spoke and quite eloquently, and also Manny reminded us of a few important things too when he spoke. And Manny we didn't have a speakers list. We just asked people for their comments and got them. And I'm very satisfied with what happened there, and thank the town of Gibsons and all the people who showed up on behalf of the town as well. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, Donna. Yeah, we know that's very important to you, and you've shown a lot of leadership in that program. So thank you.
You have one more person, Mayor Beamish.
Okay.
Judith Bonkoff is coming over.
Thank you.
Judith, you'll need to accept the invitation to move over. Here she comes.
Yeah, see you there, Judith.
Sorry about that. Yeah, sorry
All right.
about that. I was joining as an attendee and I'm supposed to be a panelist. I apologize. Good evening, Council and Mayor. Just have a question. This too is about something that was a while ago. I asked a question about the water runoff on the seawall, and I wonder if there's anything to report.
I'll turn that to the CAO.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. I think when Ms. Swankoff reported that matter, we had that water tested. That showed sort of nothing sort of out of particular concern. I don't recall what it was, but we sent it to the Ministry of the Environment and also to Waterline, our aquifer consultants, and they had no concerns that they were expressed to us. The main concern became just the overflow, and that was happening because of excessive amount of water coming across the lane, and there's no drainage works on the lane, so the water typically just travels across the land. The works that are taking place at the moment, the construction of a new building on the corner, it's owned, and it's part of the development on the old Shell lands, which is the site that we're talking about. And so the drainage that comes on the lane and across the way will be treated on site as it should be. And they are constructing this summer a ditch that will receive those waters, and then it gets discharged like a whole other storm in town. So no concerns there. It just looks messier than it is. We've done our due diligence and are just working with the property owner to clean it up and make use of the construction that's happening there to build a more permanent way to deal with the drainage on that site.
Manny, there been talk about putting a sign up there on the seawalk to explain to people that this is being.
We talked about the sign. It just sort of became about, sort of rather than putting up sort of the test that we got from the water testing facility, it's sort of it becomes a bit more of a story. It's not to mention the fact that we haven't enacted a sign just because what to put on the sign became a little bit more of an ongoing conversation, I guess.
Yeah.
I don't know if that makes sense, but we certainly can put up a sign just to say it's being looked after, but what to put on the sign, there wasn't really. I should also say that not only we've done that due diligence, but that site, it was certified clean. It has a certificate from the Ministry of the Environment, and even back then we were involved in that. So we have no concerns with what's in that water other than looking dirty, primarily from the organics that are in them.
I just, can I just speak to that one more time, please?
You can, yes.
Sure. Okay, so just, as a regular person, an observer, I see a sheen to that water, like an oil sheen. And I know that was a shipyard once upon a time. And could it be, I don't know what the reports say or is there anywhere that I can read the reports? And I just, for me, maybe the rusty stuff, I have seen that rusty stuff down the way in Weingarten Park. There is a runoff creek, and if you go down, you can see some of the rusty stuff. So I'm gonna say, okay, that rusty stuff maybe, but when I see an oil sheen, it makes me extremely concerned because I know there has been industrial stuff there. It also, someone has told me that it was a contaminated waste site, or it was an identified contaminated site at one time. And I don't know whether that becomes a decontaminated site and that becomes, that's what it is now. It's completely cleaned up and it's uncontaminated, or what happens when you have a contaminated site?
Mr. Mayor, the site is completely cleaned up as far as the Ministry of the Environment is concerned. And they have issued the property owner about half a dozen years ago, it's called a certificate of completion. And so they have that, they've done the cleaning up, they've had monitoring wells for a period of time on that site. It's a process that's the contaminated sites regulation. It's done through the Ministry of the Environment. The town's involvement over the years was to do that. And we participated, we engaged with Waterline, which is our waterline consultant. We have wells near that area that we monitor that. There have been no concerns expressed to us. And if you want a copy of what we got from the water lab, we're certainly happy to share that with you or anybody else.
Okay, well, thank you for doing it. It just looks worse than it is then. And I'd love a copy. Thank you.
Okay, no problem.
Councilor Lumley?
For years, like from 2005, as long as I've been down there, there's these series of test pods. And they used to come quite frequently and do water testing. There's actually one right underneath our patio table. There's so they screw the thing off and they go down, take a water sample. And during the last part of it, maybe the last 3 testing, the woman that I spoke to there said that the site was not showing any contamination at all. That was after, literally 12 years I was there while they were testing. So I don't know if that gives you any comfort, but I did see them continually testing, and near the ending phase of it, one of the people there that was working said that all their tests were coming up like, no, there was no contamination. So I don't know.
Councillor Diendrad?
Thanks, Mayor. Actually, I would like this report to be shared with council, and also that this goes on a newsletter, because I don't think there's only one resident that has concern. I myself had concern, and there are other people. So I think we show the report and maybe tell a little bit of feedback, and I think people will settle.
Yeah, this issue comes up every few years. As I say, back in 2005 or so, when I was CIO, we had this tested all the same, because for the same reason, and it was similar results naturally occurring. And in terms of oil sheen, I actually called Manny when I was prior to being mayor, when I was living up in Parkland, about what I thought was actually an oil spill by equipment up on Parkland. And it's surprising how much oil comes out of cedar after it's been sitting for a long time and decomposing. And that's exactly what it was. The sheen on top of the water was cedar oil. And it wasn't the oil spill that I thought it was. So that there's different things, but we have a report, share it. Let's not lose it, because we had a report in 2005 too. So let's make sure that we have it to refer to. Councillor Diendrad?
Thank you. Are we contemplating putting a sign? I think if we put a sign, we would end these inquiries.
Yeah.
Is it possible that the town put a sign there just to clarify?
Well, it's coming up and saying what that sign says. So let's see what staff could come up with in a simple sign to say that this material. So it could simply be a reference to our website, Town of Gibson's website for a analysis report on this matter. So it could be that simple as that. Councillor Kroll?
Elizabeth very effectively used QR reader symbols on the signs for the Holland Land. So, you know, if it was just a sign saying slippery with wet, a QR symbol, and it takes you to the report done.
Yeah, we'll try something. Yeah. Okay, there's nothing else. We've answered everybody's questions. Maybe
Donna
not answered.
Donna Thomas has her hand up again.
Oh, twice.
Go ahead, Donna.
You guys, I've been hearing this argument since I was a kid. Leaves are organic material.
Yes.
They have oil in them.
Yes.
I just can't believe that we don't know that.
Yeah. No, I learned that, as I say, after I made a complaint to the town and learned that it was the cedar oil. And yeah, I understand that. Yeah.
Alder leaves do wonderful things. They're colored like gasoline. They just don't smell like that.
Thank you, Donna, for your comments. Appreciate that.
Well,
yeah, thank you. Okay, we are going to close our meeting as we have a second meeting to go forward to, and I want to thank everybody for joining us tonight. Colton, thank you, and thank you for your very active participation in the school and the community. I appreciate that. And members of the public, thank you for your interest in what we do. We don't always get it right, but we're here. We come back. So, and that I'd like a motion to close the meeting in accordance with schedules 91, A, C, M, and 2B. Personal information about identifiable individual, labor relations, a matter that under another enactment is such that public may be excluded, and the consideration of information held in confidence relating to negotiations between the municipality and the provincial government. Someone make that motion. Councillor Kroll, second by Councillor Diendrad. All in favor? Okay. Council will take 5 minutes, and thank you, members of the public.